1997, went to be a distributor for Purity. My older brother, the dumber, uglier one, who's not here, went to work for Dad in 95, and then I went back in 2000 after college. So we both did other things and went back. But anyway, we're third generation. A lot has changed, but I'll try to go through some of the history. And before I start with it, I'll try to reference what I can, and I may look around and say, is that right, each partner, is that right? Or somebody in the audience may say, hey, Brad, I think it was like this. But a lot of my knowledge from it, obviously things Dad told us, but he also had a Word document that I referenced a lot of this from. So you guys come on in. Come on in. They're just here for the ice cream. But a lot of what information I have comes from that, what he wrote down, and I looked, we've read it, but then you read it again, and 5 years later, perspective changes from what you're reading. So, and as we've had growth and challenges the last 4 or 5 years, you kind of read what he went through and go, he and Mom, and they rolled their sleeves up and went to work and made it happen, and that's the reason we're still standing here almost 7 years later. So I will get into, I do have some pictures and PowerPoint, because that's why I said, do you have a PowerPoint presentation? I said, well, I guess I better learn how to use PowerPoint this morning. So I did the best I could with getting something together here. Going back to 1926, Sanitary Pure Milk Company, from Dad's nose, started by Mr. Henry White. And
not related to me.
Not related to you. Okay. There may be folks and they say, oh, yes. So the plant that most of you guys remember over on Vine Street, across from the Election Commission where it is now, and they had a lot. That's where the trucks were parked later on. But so the plant was back there in that building. Mr. White sold J.D. Jacobs and then William Tompkins. That's when they changed the name to Murfreesboro Pure Milk Company, or Mr. Tompkins did. From Dad's history, it was Mr. Tompkins had an insurance business, and it's not easy to operate a milk plant and make money and then operate an insurance business as well. So my granddad, Pops, or Mr. Herbert, got bought into the business and got shares of the business, and this is where it's fuzzy, but from notes and what Damsel put together, E.M. Hicks also received shares, and I think, from his understanding, there was a Miss Mattie Hicks, and so she owned the property, but she didn't want the business to be foreclosed on. Pops got the business, and then it's believed that Mr. Herbert made a deal with Mr. Tompkins to assume all the equipment, and there was debt not only on the equipment itself, but the property, the building, and everything else. So that was, the story is a month after the stock market crash, but it is right around that time. So I went to. This is one of the notes from the history. And this is, I said it was by H.D.Y. Jr., which is Dad. I'll footnote him, so I'm not plagiarizing here, but this was his quote to it. So, a note signed Mr. Jacobs. He said he was paying $50 a week walk down to Commerce Union Bank to try to get it paid off. So that was. Let's see, and I have another. That's over there. There's the Cherry Burrell Corp. I think they had produced and financed the actual processing equipment that was in the plant, and you can see 11.3 or 12.3 of 1929 for $150. So there's Pop's signature, and there you go. And that's a lot of that stuff is over there. There's old certificates. I don't know. We came across that within the last 4 or 5 years. Because we found this, I think, after Dad. hadn't died. But, yeah. Yeah. So I think it's interesting seeing that old check and like, oh wow. So you go, okay, they're all in, they're around $6,500, and then his brother in later on. So, there's not much that we know, and Dad said not much that we knew from, during the war years, 30s and 40s. Everything was produced and then horse and buggy, door to door, glass bottles, mainly quart bottles, down to pints. Had obviously a different time, but left notes on the notes of what you needed, and left the empty bottles in the back of the house, and you go in the back and put what each family needed in the refrigerator. Probably doors were unlocked or whatever else. So maybe some nods going, yeah, I remember that. That's how we did it. Yeah. So I get that a lot. I live in Nashville, and Purity stayed on with home delivery, gosh, up until the late 80s or 90s. And I still have, even my friends say, yeah, we remember that. Why'd y'all stop doing that? I said, well, nobody made any money doing that. So a different time, but it was, I think from what we can tell, profitable. Those were good years from what he had said and what we knew. So let's see. Let's keep going. I think I realized how famous this picture was. We got over there. I know. Yeah, you did. I stole this from you. So we have a replica of that wagon at our office in a trailer that Davis and I constantly argue with Dad, what are you doing? And Eddie Miller, who's written our insurance forever, says, no, boys, you can't get rid of it. We're going to insure it for $7,500 every year. Your dad will not let me let this be on the insurance policy. So many years later, it was a couple of years ago, but I think it was like 2007, 2008, Dad had that thing in the Christmas parade here in Murfreesboro. So went around from Lewisburg, brought a horse up, and a whole other set of shenanigans, but anyway. But I thought that was interesting. So Frank Travis is Dad always told stories about Frank. He's there delivering there. And in the history, talked about Frank. And I remember him a little bit as a child, that he joined when World War II, if I get this right, World War II broke out.
He went.
He didn't want to get drafted, so he joined the Merchant Marines. And so he didn't want to get deployed. So he got shot down in the Pacific, and he got shot down in the Atlantic. And evidently it was fitting because Frank was a character. But let's see. So you guys might remember this. This is again from the notes. I'm happy to read this to you if anybody can't read it. I didn't know how big it would show up. Can everybody see that all right? And I saw somebody had brought in the metal crate and some quart bottles and we've got an old wooden crate at our office. And you put those metal bottles in, and you lift it up, and I don't see how those guys did that. It is. I know what we're dealing with now with weight, and that is so much heavier than what we have now. But like they say, it was tougher back then, I guess. But that gives you a little bit of what they were doing, and the big embarrassing to say, I never really understood what the homogenizer did, breaking down the fat globules and
Pasteurized, homogenized.
Pasteurized, I know the pasteurizer, bringing the heat up and down and killing the bacteria, but the homogenized, but that's the whole cream rises to the top. And so, again, that, I'm sure it makes sense to you guys, even more so than me, but, anybody have any questions or anything to add? I don't want to assume, certainly, like I said, assume I know everything because you guys have got some history with this as
When it
well.
refers to the colored tops, were the bottles actually colored?
I don't think so. I think all the bottles, it was just the sizes. So you had the quarts or the pints or the half pints, and then to differentiate one from another is where they would put the different color caps on the top. And I think it would just be like cellophane and then.
Well, the one that I brought at home, Springer, they would take a cardboard insert that was pushed in.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure there's some of that too.
That would probably be the colored top.
Yeah. And, you know, to this day, when we have guys deliver to grocery stores and that sort of thing, there's a lot of, hey, it's red top, blue top, you know, orange top. Even to this day, we kind of refer to it as that, red top gallons or red top halves. So it's interesting because you saw a lot of the maybe 80s, 90s, people go into less fat on milk. And we've seen the swing back the other way, where people want the sweet milk or the whole milk or 2%. We've seen, and we sell very little skim milk anymore. Of course, we call it blue milk because it makes your it's important cereal makes your milk turn blue. Doesn't have enough fat in it, tastes good. So there you get in the 50s. That's somewhere. They're home two guys going out of a truck. Miss Pards, I look familiar.
Did you have two guys per truck?
I think they did. And I think there were two doors and they could go down the street and work too.
I remember so well, I grew up on North Spring Street, when the milkman would come of a morning, before we got up and deliver milk. And to all the little kids, if you stuck a note in an empty bottle and said, my birthday is tomorrow, he would leave you a little thing of chocolate milk. So if your profits weren't as good as you could have been.
There's always been a little bit of stale or missing product, whether it's guys. One of the jokes that we had, there was a guy that was a new route man that worked for us and really liked the taste of eggnog. Oh man, this is good. We'll drink a cold quart of this. They drink a quart of eggnog and over lunch, and you're not gonna be worth much the rest of the afternoon. So there was
Brad, I'm not from this area, but from Miami area. We had a MacArthur area.
No MacArthur? Well, yes.
And my dad drove a truck like that, and he stood up, and it was a clutch, so he somehow could stand up and drive it. And every once in a while, he'd be in our neighborhood, so he'd stop, especially in the summer. And all my friends, when they saw his truck, they would gather, because when he opened the back door, all that ice that you kept with milk,
Yeah.
we didn't have ice like that. So
Right.
I was the most popular kid on the block.
Right. Part of the funny you say that. Part of the dad references when he was growing up that he and his good friend Mr. Rollins, who was from here, they would go over to the milk plant, steal ice for not milk, other things. So yeah. Yeah. My granddad and his brother-in-law working away, and they're doing other things. But one of them, and I hate to get too tacky, but when Dad had a thing that we always laughed at. He said one of the drivers, when they were doing home delivery, he would say, "Well, what? I'm on vacation and you're delivering my route this week." I said, "Okay, what? I go here and here." I said, "Well, when you go to Mrs. Smith's house, just knock on the back door and give her what she wants." He said, "Go." This is good, Lord. Oh, man.
That's better than hurricane.
That might be better than Tiger Milk, so it depends. Depends on Mrs. Mood. Okay, so then I'm picking up bits and pieces of again, the history. Mr. Herbert they would sell ice cream out of the plant over there on Sundays. People didn't have freezers, and so they come over there. Had walk-up customers at 39 cents a quart. So then you get into 50s, 60s, and then you start getting. Mr. Park, when did refrigerated trucks come to being? In 60s, early 60s?
I think the first one we had was 61.
Okay.
But there had been others before that.
Okay. And I guess that's when things really rapidly started changing. And I know Dad always talked about the big dairies in Nashville, so you had consolidation. Every used to be every little town had a dairy because you weren't shipping product from producing it in Nashville and shipping it to Birmingham, or producing it in Athens, Tennessee, and shipping it to Atlanta or wherever else. Every little town had its own dairy.
Every little town had usually more than one. Chattanooga, for example, I remember in my lifetime there were 42 processing plants in Chattanooga.
Good night.
And then now they're done.
They're not. Yeah, they're not.
I mean, we've like one on every block.
Wow.
Mont Eagle had 3.
Did it really? Who else was up there?
Well, there was Cherokee, Dairy, I don't know anything about them. And then Mansfield, I can't remember the name of it, but then our dairy.
Okay.
So there were 3 there, not all at the same time, but, and then we had, one in Savoy, one in County, one in Mississippi.
Wow.
One, every little community had at least one.
Yeah. And to my knowledge, this area was known as the dairy capital of the South. There were dairies around, and in Shelbyville, Bedford County, Rutherford County, and everywhere
June is
else.
Dairy Month.
I'm sorry.
And June is Dairy Month.
And June is Dairy Month. That's right. That's exactly right. So we get into us and what's happening with NPM. You started having the consolidation, these smaller dairies, and they just, you had these. And in his notes, the seal test had over 60% of the market share at Nashville, which is a lot. And then Jersey Farms and Medigold, and then of course Purity. And Dad and my granddad had tried other things, tried to go to all Jersey cow milk and just sell Jersey cows because it tastes better instead of what's locally. But I don't think they could really get that going. And there was tried the cottage cheese plant, do private label cottage cheese plant. I had to put pressure on them as well. And that was over on Vine Street as well. And then you had, market moving away from home delivery more towards grocery retail. So things changing. So let's see. So just there's old newspaper clippings that I need to go back through and make sure I preserve them. But they, there's all sorts of things in there that.
946. I like the phone number.
946. That's right. 946.
So milk bottle noise was a major problem in these side of the donate was always before $1.
That's right. That's right. So that's right. They went to cartons. That's right. So you had this, the gabled wax cartons. Yeah. So you mentioned MacArthur Dairy. I'll tell an interesting story about MacArthur. So MacArthur was under the same umbrella recently under Dean Foods. And when I'm segueing into more industry news, so at MacArthur, when Dean Foods basically declared bankruptcy and sold to DFA, MacArthur was spun off, and they're sitting on a prime piece of real estate in Miami. Well, the guy that bought them he bought it for the real estate and not for the processing plant. Well, the employees got together and said, please do not close this thing. And so now and this guy, South Florida, his Manna is the guy who made a ton of money. Well, all right, I'll keep it open. And so the name of the company is Manna Saves MacArthur. There's two processes. That's correct. Yeah. So we work with some of those folks now that have been a long time with both MacArthur and T.G. Lee in Florida. Yeah, so know those folks.
MacArthur passed away in Monty.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, she lived there for several years. Passed away. 97, I believe.
I didn't know that. Wow. So, and I don't want to gloss over any of it, but pressures and changing economy, 1967, freshly married dad and mom, who she talked about on the way over here. Oh my gosh, we got to close the plant. We're not making any money, and I'm taking care of my dad. And we got to do something. Of course, I think mom's ready to move back to Atlanta or leave Murfreesboro. But I said, no, I can't do that to mom and dad. So went to, I guess, got in touch with Purity somehow. I obviously known them and had to deal with the Zells, who treated the Zell family and the Gasser family, who were.
He interviewed all those Dairies.
He did interview all of them.
That's what they did, and major thing was that reunionized.
Yeah, that's right.
No, that was not good.
So they, one of the things too is Purity, as far as territory, gave them room for expansion. South, I think Bedford County, and then as far down towards you guys.
You know, in 65, Mr. Herbert bought right there.
If y'all can hear that, so Mr. Parton, his families go way back, but his dads sold their business processing facility up on Montego Mountain to Mr. Herbert, right?
Right. And 3 years later, during that 3-year period, from 65 to 68, Murfreesboro Pure Milk became a distributor for Purity.
Okay.
And so that brought me into the Purity family.
Right, okay.
And I bought the distribution back from Biggie and Bud. And
So how far did you guys come off the mountain? Or did you come off Pelham?
And we pretty well stayed up on the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Bumped Mayfield on the other side, which was
Right.
not a good thing. But anyway, in 68, I bought it back, distribution on
Okay.
it. And then when our son died,
Uh-huh.
we sold it back to Haagen Dazs.
Yeah. Okay. Myself. Okay. So you said, if you look back, there were basically 4 dairies, but there were more than 4 because your flavor was around too. There were a bunch of dairies around, but the only one still in Nashville processing any milk is Purity.
This is their 100th,
This is their 100th year.
and you'll see a lot of Halloween burn.
You know what I mean, Bert?
I
You-
work from home, he's out there.
Oh, did you really? Okay.
Yeah, I work with Carter Cherry Advertising.
Yes. Which- You guys were
And the yellow jug.
in the yellow jug, and you guys are the reason they're probably still around. Yes. Well, I had a conversation with Mark here recently, and he was talking about the advertising side of it.
Yeah, they just
And-
revamped it.
And he said, I remember telling Dad would say, we've got to spend 2% of our revenue on advertising. He said, Dad, we can't afford it. He said, well, we can't afford not to. That's what we're going to do. And they had the kangaroo. And Dad would say, you had 3 channels. And so that's right. You know what? Again, you know more than I do. But yeah, so Purity gets in the ice cream business in 1986. We followed suit, not only distributing just Purity, but other brands as well. And then moved from Vine Street. Mom and Dad built the office that we're in today, out on Southgate, South Church. And nothing's changed out there. There's no traffic. So it's the same. So that was the first day of being a distributor. From my understanding, I think that picture. And Mr. Parton, this fellow right here is Roy Perry. I don't know if you remember Roy.
No.
Well, he comes and visits still, and he says, I'm the only person that I know of that worked for 3 generations of Youngs. Because he worked for my granddad, worked for Dad, and then he retired in 2000. And when you came, I thought of him because when you gave me this belt buckle a little while ago, every time he comes in our office, he's wearing it to this day. So he's a sweet man, and yeah, it's neat to see him. So, but that's Gene Blind there, Tommy Alcorn in the front. And so that's where that lot is where the election commission building is right now on Vine Street. So it's across the street from where the house is. If you were driving by the house, there's an old pole that's still sticking up that had a sign on it. But it's anyway. So the story, and I may get some of this wrong, maybe right, but then I think it was the Christmas parade of 1982. I think that's
I
right.
remember being in warm months, I remember, he's sitting at
Either Christmas or a Thanksgiving parade. So he agreed to come down. And I remember meeting him, and he was over at the office over on Vine Street, and he was going to pull the Christmas parade by Purity truck, and Dad was driving the truck, and he was going to be in a bathtub taking a bath full of milk, pouring it all over himself. And Dad, I think it was Jim Haynes. Dad told him, he said, "Hey, we go around the corner. There's a guy over here named Jim Haynes. Say something to him." So because he had a microphone like this, and so he's driving around, everybody's clapping, and he pulls him around, and Ernest says, "Oh, look, and there's Jim Haynes." So never broke character and kept going. Anyway, I always thought that was an interesting story. So
It's a lot of milk.
he sold them a lot of that.
Yeah.
There's a reason that so Purity, like I said, Purity advertising their 100-year anniversary. And, Lord knows there's been a lot of changes there. But there's still some old timers there that remember what's going on and what's going on with that brand. And there's 30 or 40 billboards in Middle Tennessee with him on it. So I think there was something like 50 different commercials they did with him.
So we were in our ADIs, and it was just a very successful campaign. And that's what got the attention of Eisner at Disney, and we made the first movies then. The first one, in fact, past weekend was the anniversary of the first film, which was shot at, in Dixon County, was that?
Land Between the Lakes, called Ernest Goes to Camp.
Yeah, Ernest
Ernest
Goes to
Goes to
Camp.
Camp.
Yeah, that's what it was. And we shot it there, and they sent a crew down from Disney to help us film that. It was our first real experience with doing a movie. We knew how to do ads to keep
Sure.
people in, you know, their interest for a minute, but to keep them interested for an hour, we weren't too good at that. So we had to learn. But Jim Barney was he was terrific talent.
I think when you're talented like that, people
He had
figure
to
it out.
all the time. We had to shut him up most.
Well, they ran. I don't know if you saw. They ran a news feature on it, and I don't know. And
When was this? This recently?
this is recently. And it's a weird
Yeah,
twist of
they
fate.
were just-
You know, going, golly, there's some. But I happened to walk in, and I never turn on the news because I leave everything good. But I happened to turn on the news. I got home from work, and all of a sudden, I'm looking at it, and both Davis and Mom said, "Are you watching Channel X?" I don't even know. I was like, I never watched the news, but we were all three having to watch at the same time, and they had this 3-minute feature on Jim Barney and Purity and what they were doing. They interviewed nephews and cousins and
Miles Ezel Sr.'s grandson worked with Carter Cherry. And
So-
he's the one that kind of brought it back.
okay.
He's like, I don't know, 55, 50.
Well, what's his name?
Who?
The grandson that brought.
His name is David Thomas, because he was he was Miles Ezel Sr.'s daughter's
Right.
son. And
Right.
they lived on part of the properties that was part of the old Purity Dairies on Elm Hill, where
Right.
the original dairy was.
Okay. Yeah. So they, thanks to you guys' work, Purity is still.
Advertising, they used to advertise it.
It does, and it's harder. I mean, you can only imagine now. I would try to get eyeballs in front of people and get the product out there. And, you know, there was a stat even 15, 20 years ago of 50% of the people that live here now aren't from here. You know, like I said, I live in Nashville, incidentally, and drive back here every day. But about 5, 6 years ago, we were a fundraiser for school, my son's school, and we'd done this auction with some other dads, and I didn't really know them. Brad, you want in? Yeah, that's fine, we'll do it. So include me, and it was a cookout later. So you know, got to know some of these guys, and there were 10 people in the room, and I was the only one from Middle Tennessee. And there was one other guy from East Tennessee, and everybody else was from across the country. And it's you know. My wife and I kid each other, and then we're kind of careful who we say this in front of because we'll be judged. But my wife's family is also from Murfreesboro, and then when we started looking at genealogy and family history, we're like, "Oh, wait a minute, it's a little too close for comfort." So, what we tell we'd be in town, be in Nashville, and then, you know, as you might imagine, that's where I'm from here. Weird. Yeah, I know, but we are. So it's that way. A lot of Middle Tennessee. This isn't necessarily history, but kind of where we are a little bit today. Been a lot of changes. Probably more in the last 5 to 6 years for us as a company. And then even industry-wide, there's a lot that's happened. Purity, you probably, if you look for Purity ice cream on the shelf, you better grab a carton and put it in your museum case because they are no longer packaging Purity ice cream. And to be honest, Mayfield had been producing that ice cream for them for 15 plus years. So it's just, you know, DFA, who now owns Purity and Mayfield, and Lord knows how many other processors across the country. That you know, it's a different world where this plant produces for this and this plant produces for this. And I've heard this ad: if you eat a cheese pizza in Sydney, Australia, that cheese came from a DFA plant somewhere in the United States. It's all, so they've got their hands in everything. But their number one thing they want to do is have a place for their farmers to sell their milk. So they're always looking for processors. So, and you know, like we said earlier, I said earlier about milk consumption. We've seen, you know, for so long it's done this, and that's why there's so many processors we're having a hard time. But there's been kind of a bump, and then dairy consumption overall has been growing from yogurts and cheeses and just, you know, yeah, people don't go grab a cold glass of milk like you used to, but there's a lot of, you know, drinkable yogurts or just other ways to consume it because they're, you know, the dairies were all trying to stay profitable, stay relevant. Meanwhile, the drink companies were making a lot of money on the high margin sugar water items in their packaging and just kind of push the dairy companies aside. But you get a lot more benefits of drinking an 8-ounce glass of milk than you do a Monster Energy drink. So, but again, that's kind of, I said the smarter, uglier one. Y'all judge for yourself, I guess. It was bright, and we had to take a picture for something. Guys were both squinting. But that was a couple of months, about a month or so ago. So that's Davis on the right. He does live in Murfreesboro. So anyway, another question.
You package these conglomerates. Do they package for people like Trader Joe, Whole Foods, those high-end stores?
They do.
They just put their labels on it?
Yeah. They do. Interesting you say Trader Joe's. I hope I'm not giving away corporate secrets here. But I think a lot of Purity's doing a lot of Trader Joe's. So crazy enough, they'll ship it to Jacksonville and then ship it back to Green Hills and sell it. And you go, how's that work? But it's all backhaul and moving trailers around the country.
We have Trader Joe's here now.
That's right. So, yeah.
So I was looking at your website, and you've got some really good brands there. Haagen Dazs, Nestle, Riches. They were in West Palm Beach.
That's right. We work really closely with Riches in West Palm.
Yeah, I remember that. I don't know if it's still operating, but
Oh yeah. Well, we're serving all these. I don't know. We're serving all these schools. You know, it's 80+ school systems. A lot of that's ice cream. So that's our whole footprint. All of it's ice cream. Inside of that's milk territory. But we do, you know, Riches is the only certified nut-free facility, certified this. And so we go to all the school systems with that stuff. So we do a lot of that.
well, I noticed there's a Mexican.
A lot of it's Mexican. Yeah, a lot of it's Mexico. So that's the side on the ice cream side when you know, we had friends call and say, oh, Purity's going out of ice cream business. What are you going to do? I'm like, well, that represents about 5 to 6, 7% of overall ice cream sales. I mean, we're selling Haagen Dazs, Snickers, Ben Jerry's, you know, Nestle, M&M Mars, Gelatos, you mentioned. So we've got another brand that just approached us that we just put in the stores over in Junior's, a JT's ice cream that is from Florida, incidentally.
How did you acquire all these brands?
That's a good question. You end up getting.
Your reputation must be pretty good.
Well,
Yes.
I don't know. I guess so. Which, you know, you have some staying power. Maybe if you're still standing, you're pretty good at what you're doing. There are a lot of people like us across the country, but we don't overlap so much. So, for instance, in North Alabama, there's a distributor based in Mobile that was covering North Alabama, and it was a stretch. And I got to be buddies with him. He said, Brad, y'all take over this customer list for us. We're killing ourselves trying to do it. You do this, you do. But what ends up happening is these contracts will be written with a Unilever or a Nestle which says, hey, I've got a Circle K store that's opening in Florence, Alabama. You got to go serve it. Well, if it's inside the state lines, inside the contract, you got to go there. And there are a lot of pine trees between Murfreesboro and Florence, Alabama, so you better make sure you got enough product on your truck to make it profitable. And enough stops and enough volume in that area.
So that's why you set up the branches?
Mm-hmm. And it's some of them may be 1 or 2 routes, some maybe 4 or 5. The one in Chattanooga, interestingly enough, is really, really busy for us. We go all the way down to Cartersville, Georgia. But go, from there, I mean, we used to go in North Carolina, but gosh, there's mountains and pine trees over there. So yeah.
I'm gonna ask you, I know you talking about the boiled turkey and the eggnog.
Yes.
I know you say you sell all that now. How much majority, like you sell a tender, like you sell a whole lot of it? I know you just sell a lot of that, like majority or anything. Percentage, like, what you sell other than real small. I was curious about that.
Well, as far as just say,
Actually, like percentage of what you sell, like I know you sell more than, like, I've got a great intimate, he loves eggnog boiled turkey. I believe at 14, and every year they get a hold of it. Or you can drink all one time, I'll drink. He loves it.
Well,
He loves it.
we've got our sales manager, who's the most competitive person I know. I swear he's got an inside line on the production facility at Purity. And so he knows how much is being produced, and he orders it and steals it from Purity Nashville guys, for our guys. And but you want to make sure you don't have any left on January 2nd, because it's going to be sold out. So they forecast.
Yeah.
You deal with a perishable item, so they forecast what the needs are going to be, and then run it for however long based on, last year we sold this. Do we have any new outlets for it? And if we do, what does that mean? Or, we authorize at Kroger, we authorize at Walmart, we authorize at Publix. What's our retail going to be? So, they look at it from that side. So, yes, sir, expression.
It's interesting that you said Mayfield made the ice cream in the Purity carton. When I moved to Mont Eagle a long time ago, and I met Richard Parton, he was telling everybody that Mayfield ice cream would make you sick. So he was
He was right. To be fair about that. So, Mark Uzell, who was running Purity at the time, when Dean Foods said, we're going to close this ice cream plant in Nashville and move it to Athens, and Mark fought for it. Fought for a lot of things for his people. But one of the other things he fought for is to maintain the recipes and the ingredients and the things that made Purity different. And that we didn't, bears to say, Davis and I didn't know that when we're talking with Mayfield saying, well, why can't it's just a package change out. No, it's different, and we can't sell it and produce it to you guys. It's a numbers thing. Okay. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
JJV Television Production.